Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Delaney from the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, and I'd like to welcome you to the Virginia Tech Research Center to celebrate the Innovation Fund Award announcement. This afternoon, we will hear from federal government leaders and members of Congress, followed by two panels with industry leaders. To begin our program with welcoming remarks, I would like to introduce Dr. Luis da Silva, the Executive Director of the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative and the Bradley Professor of Cybersecurity at Virginia Tech. Ladies and gentlemen, Luis da Silva.
Thank you, John. So, Secretary Raimondo, Senator Warner, Representative Beyer, Assistant Secretary Davidson, distinguished guests, you're all very welcome here on behalf of Virginia Tech. It's wonderful to be able to host today's celebration. This has been a long time coming, and we're really delighted that you all could make it today. As John mentioned, I'm a professor at Virginia Tech, where I also lead what's called the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, or CCI. This is a very distinguished audience. It's very impressive, and I think that shows the importance of the Wireless Supply Chain Innovation Fund to U.S. leadership in networks, both today's networks and the next generation of networks that are to come. I'd like to quickly acknowledge the Commonwealth of Virginia for having created 5 years ago the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, or CCI, the group that I have the pleasure of leading here at Virginia Tech. We are a very unique organization. We bring together 45 universities and colleges across the Commonwealth, led by Virginia Tech, but with a common mission of research, innovation, and workforce development in cybersecurity, which is critical both to the development of Open RAN, but also more broadly to national security. Early on, we identified two areas of focus. One is what we call securing the interactions between humans and machines. Think artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. And the other is what we call securing next G. So how do we secure the next generation of networks? So back in 2020, we started investing in a new test bed, part of which is here in this building, just upstairs, but also with outdoor components in Blacksburg, with some assets in Richmond, in Norfolk, and Fairfax, so across the state. In 2021, we joined the O-RAN Alliance. And then last year, we became an OTIC, an Open Testing Integration Center. So it's been a long time coming to get where we are today to be able to contribute to the project that's going to be discussed later today. When we think about test beds, I think we think of the hardware, maybe the software behind it, but a really crucial component is the people. So we believe that our mission is also to form the workforce that we need in the country, in Virginia, but more broadly across the nation, the people who are going to design and deploy and run and secure these networks. Virginia Tech is, and CCI researchers are part of, I believe, 5 projects currently funded under this Notice of Funding Opportunity. So we are really excited about everything that's going to come in the next few years that is a result of these projects. So to get this started, again, welcome all of you. And I want to call to the podium Assistant Secretary Alan Davidson. So Alan.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you to Virginia Tech for hosting this and being such a great partner in this project. I'm thrilled today also to be joined by, by Congressman Beyer, who we've been following each other around all day today, actually. Senator Warner, who is really the congressional mastermind, I think is the right way to think of him, of this entire program, really. And my boss, Secretary Raimondo, who I just have to say is it's been a tireless of innovation and American, and she really makes sure that we are tireless champions too. I'm also, I have to say, it is wonderful to be joined by so many of our partners in this program. The companies who are grantees here, AT&T, Verizon, so many other partners in this project, from academia, from across the private sector. So thank you all for joining us and for being part of this announcement today. And I'll just say we're here today to discuss the future of wireless innovation. We take it for granted today, but wireless connectivity has already transformed American life, right? From 5G mobile phones to connected cars, precision agriculture, this next generation of connected warehouses and factory floors. Nearly every part of our economy is being transformed, and that's only going to continue. And while 5G is a dynamic technology, today's market for wireless equipment is static and consolidated, more static and highly consolidated, I should say. Just a few firms today provide the full set of radios and computers that power our mobile networks. Some of those equipment vendors pose national security risks to the US and to our allies around the world. And the result is that we have a wireless equipment market where costs are higher and resilience is lower, and American companies are increasingly shut out. But change is on the way. We have a vision, a shared vision of open and trusted networks deployed around the world, and the world is moving towards that vision now. We're working to achieve that vision in the US government through the investments that we're making through this $1.5 billion Wireless Innovation Fund. The Innovation Fund is a 10-year program to catalyze new ways to build open and interoperable wireless networks. Today, we are excited to be here announcing a $42 million grant to a consortium of US carriers, including AT&T and Verizon, foreign carriers, universities, and equipment suppliers to stand up a testing, evaluation, and R&D center in Dallas with a satellite facility here in the DMV. And I just have to say, I am particularly excited about this award for two reasons. First, testing is an absolutely critical element of building openness, right? We need to have test beds to be able to that we heard loud and clear from industry when we started this program was testing was a place where government could really add value. So I am very excited. We've been working all year to be able to put out a grant like this. The second thing that's really exciting is just the organizations that are part of it. And they are really a testimony to what we may be able to do when we work together. And so I just want to say thank you, this domestic and international industry and across the private sector consortium of folks who've come together. That is, again, just the kind of thing that we were hoping to create when we started this program. With this news, we've reached a major milestone in our program. We have awarded the final grants from our first funding opportunity, $140 million, totaling in 17 different projects. That is just the beginning. This spring, we will be launching another larger round of funding. I'm looking at the senator and the secretary because they have been advocates for pushing to move quickly in this space. So I'll just conclude by saying this is a very exciting time for wireless networks. Open, interoperable networks. They're going to drive competition, make our supply chains more secure, lower costs for consumers. They will improve resilience and protect our national security. The grants that we're making today and the rest of these innovation fund investments will help forge the path to that better future. So thank you. And now I am delighted to turn it over to Congressman Beyer, who's been a leader on so many tech issues. If you want a great primer on some of the big issues around AI, I commend to you his remarks this morning, which I heard at the State of the Net conference. Congressman, thank you.
Thank you, Alan, very much. And welcome to Virginia, but specifically welcome to the 8th Congressional District in Virginia, the best congressional district in the country. It's no surprise that Secretary Raimondo would be with us today. We have the FBI, maybe, we have the CIA, we have the Pentagon, we have Mount Vernon, we have the Eternal Flame. And I don't know if you read this or not, but there's a big study out last week that the hardest working county in America is Arlington County, where we are right now. And the hardest working city in America is Alexandria, just down the road. This is hours worked by the people and percentage of the population of the workforce. So this is very sensible that you come here to do this. And I'm really grateful. So congratulations to AT&T, to Verizon, to NTD Tacoma, to Reliance Geo, to Virginia Tech, and all the alliance partners. You know, as Secretary Allen pointed out, moving away from the dangers of a Huawei to a modular approach to getting much more diversity. I know it's something this administration is taking very seriously to try to break up the huge monopolies that we get. I'm always grateful that the 5 largest defense contractors are located right here, but I miss the days when we had 50 large defense contractors, not 5. And this is something, that diversity, that really strengthens us. So I just want to say thank you so much for doing this. For a long time, I thought Oran was a small country in the middle of Asia. Now to think that it's something that's going to make our wireless network so much more resilient and redundant and much more safe. And I would just like to thank Mark Warner. And I hear from Secretary Raimondo and from Mark that no one had a bigger role in this than Senator Warner. And I'm from the Do Nothing House. So to have somebody from the Do Something Senate be able to deliver $1.5 billion and $42 million is great. We're also really thrilled that Virginia Tech is part of this. I prefer to think of Dallas as a satellite test bed for what's going on here. But in the meantime, let me introduce our wonderful senior senator for Virginia, who made all this possible, who is actually going to get a supplemental bill over to the House this week. Mark.
And Don, it's ORAN. To the oldest member of Congress who's still in college. Don is going back and getting a degree in artificial intelligence, which is incredible. And I can't think of a topic that I've spent more time on in the last 2 years than AI. And there is no linear relationship between the more time I spend on it and getting smarter, because it continues to be extraordinarily confusing. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's great to be back at another Virginia Tech presence. This is really exciting to be here with Alan Davidson, who I've known for many, many years. And I'll speak more about Secretary Raimondo in a moment. We actually go back to before she was even in elective office, and is doing a remarkable job. In many ways, it's kind of come full circle for me. As some of you may know, that I got my start when I was in business in wireless communications. I was 2 years out of law school. It was the very early days of the cell phone industry. And I went around to all my classmates, many of them who were living in this area, and said, guys, invest in this new thing called cell phones. Every one of them said to me, Warner, get a real job. Who's going to want a cell phone? They're still practicing law. And so from that early 80s to now, the 2024, it's been quite a journey in wireless communications. There's been good times and bad times. I think about the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. Literally, America led in virtually all of wireless development. We normally set the standards. We had the leading companies. We had the leading providers. But I got on the Intelligence Committee, and somewhere about mid 2014 to 2018 time period, started realizing that wireless leadership that we had enjoyed in America, and frankly throughout the West, was being taken away. As Don made mention, Huawei and ZTE were suddenly rising up at good equipment at a cheap price point, but with huge national security implications. And one of the things that really worried me, and I think this is something that Secretary Raimondo realizes so much, American leadership in technology comes not only from the fact that we've got a great higher education institutions, we've got an open market, we've got smart people, but in many ways, what America also did that had a little bit of a secret sauce was almost no matter what the innovation was, wherever it was invented in the world, we still got to set the standards. We could go through that with wireless, we could go through satellite, computing. Suddenly that American leadership in setting standards, particularly in wireless, was being outflanked by China, as China would not only have these, world-class providers, but also were flooding the standard setting bodies all over the world. We were frankly, late at sounding the alarm on Huawei and ZTE. And as Alan just reminded me, we're still spending now taxpayer money to rip out that equipment in some of our smaller telcos around the country. Huawei and ZTE still compete very aggressively all around the world. And if nation states around the world go with Huawei and ZTE and go to those standards, we're going to be left behind. So with my then great friend, former Senator Richard Burr from North Carolina, we put together this $1.5 billion program and was able to roll it in to the CHIPS bill. And partially that was because John Cornyn and I were the two lead sponsors on the CHIPS bill. And as Gina will probably tell you, I was going around, we always said, it's not just the CHIPS bill, it's the CHIPS and ORAN bill. Now, thank God, Alan, we're starting to deliver some of those dollars, and we're looking forward to the even bigger investments coming down the pike. And the truth is, and I'm not going to, with as many engineers in this room and folks who know this much better than I, you know, what ORAN is really about is moving away from a traditional hardware stack to a more software-based system, a more open system. And that suddenly allows a whole lot of, frankly, American and Indian and European and other competitors around the world to create this new kind of open infrastructure for wireless communications. And that's extraordinarily exciting. And this announcement, this $42 million, including not only our two largest carriers and in Verizon and AT&T, and I'm going to steal your line, Alan, it's like Macy's and Gimbels actually coming together. People are so freaking young, don't you remember? Those were two department stores. Those are big stores pre-Amazon. But coming together along with great educational institutions like Virginia Tech and others, other providers, other carriers, to make sure we have the kind of test bed so that we can prove out this theory. Because as we go around the world, and you know what we often hear as countries are thinking about ORAN, they're saying, well, why aren't you guys really deploying any of this in America? So with this test bed, with some of our incumbent carriers, I think we're going to be able to make that happen. So it is a long time coming. This is a national security concern. This is an American innovation concern. This will allow, as Alan has said, you know, at the end of the day, cheaper prices for consumers as we go beyond 5G to the next development of wireless networks. And it will reestablish America and our allies in the standard setting, which is frankly one of our secret sauces. Great congratulations to everyone. Alan, we are anxious for that next kind of $1 billion plus announcements coming along. But it's now my pleasure to introduce someone who I've actually have known since she was also in venture capital, many years younger than me, but many years. She's been a great state treasurer, a great governor of Rhode Island. And if you're thinking anything around technology or anything that we in the occasionally do something, Senate do, I wouldn't say all the time, but whether you're thinking about the CHIPS bill or the broadband bill or ORAN, where all this comes to pass on implementation, Congress can pass things, the president can sign it into law, but unless it's implemented correctly, and Gina Raimondo and the whole Commerce Department is basically responsible for getting it all right. And I know I'm going to be with our CHIPS team later this afternoon. I can't think of somebody more competent, more capable, and frankly, more up for the job of making sure America regains that innovation leadership than my friend. And please let me present to you the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, as Mark said, I have known him for a very long time. And I feel really quite lucky to be able to work with you as closely as we do now. I just turned to him and said, this is exciting, you know, and I would say the same thing to you, Congressman, and to the Senator. It's happening now, like because of your persistence and your hard work, your determination, we are putting money out the door to make the vision a reality. And I know it's a tough slog every day in the Capitol. Senator Warner is going to leave from here to go back to do the work of getting the supplemental done. But I hope you do take a minute to just realize the fruits of your labor. I will say, and I can tease him because we're such good friends, it is Definitely true that the ORAN money was in the CHIPS and Science Bill because of Senator Warner, because he essentially, he was the champion of the bill. And at the end, everyone knew what semiconductors were. No one really knew what ORAN was. I suspect half the people that voted for it still don't know what ORAN is, but they're like, just get that Warner off my back and put the money in the bill. So for your persistence, thank you. And for Congressman Byer, thank you. AI is so important. Technology is so important. As somebody who works with my team every day in the trenches, we need good partners like you who know the substance. To my own team, led by Alan Davidson, thank you guys. This is a lot of work. You are getting the details right, and it's hard work, and I appreciate it very much. Of course, everyone who knows me knows the reward for good work is more work. So today we'll celebrate this, and then we'll move on to the next list of grantees, which, as Alan said, is the big money. By the way, Alan and I went to law school together, so I've known him for a very long time, and I've known him to be talented and filled with integrity for a long time, and you're doing a fantastic job. So, as is often the case, when the United States thinks about how do we meet the greatest challenges of the day, we fall back on our core American values: openness, competition, innovation, and working with our allies. That's what ORAN's about. That's exactly what ORAN is about. We want to lead the world and out-compete the world. And doing that, to do that, we have to out-innovate the world. And that's what ORAN is about. And by the way, the fact that Verizon and AT&T are here, Coke and Pepsi, is that good? Burger King and McDonald's, I don't know, tells you that competition is not at odds with collaboration. The fact of the matter is that by collaborating, you'll develop new technological solutions, in this case, a software solution, which will allow America to out-innovate the world. I spend a lot of time on the road in other countries. I was recently in Brazil. I'd be going to Costa Rica soon. I travel all over Southeast Asia, Africa. I'll be going to Africa. These countries want an alternative to Chinese telecommunications equipment. We need to provide that alternative. They don't go, as Congressman said, they're not going with Huawei because they really want that. They worry about the national security threats of an all Huawei network, just as much as we worry for our own national security, but they need an alternative. And that's what ORAN provides. This innovation, as Senator Warner said, will allow the telecom network to be more open and more affordable, so that these countries and our own people can get the best of both worlds, an affordable solution that's a safe solution, that's a secure solution. So it brings the world closer to the United States, and it allows us once again to rely upon our values, our democratic values. So that's what is so exciting about this. I also know we have representatives here from the Japanese and Indian embassies. I want to thank you. Securing our supply chains is a global effort. It's a global effort. We can't do it on our own. An article of faith is that we want to work with our allies. And to get the supply chains more secure, we want to work with our allies, including the Japanese and the Indians. So what's this about? Why are we so excited about what seems like a really geeky kind of technical thing? They're even laughing at me. Forget about the technology. It's about securing our own national security, out innovating, out competing, and by the way, creating a lot of jobs in the process, including for graduates of this great institution. So I'm honored to be able to implement this. And once again, I just want to thank you, Senator Warner, and thank you, Congressman Byer, for getting us to this place. And Alan promises he'll have the rest of that money out the door in a few months. Thank you.
Okay, so we're now going to have some photographs from our principals and our awardees. So if the photographer would like to come up. Ladies and gentlemen, yep. Yep.
We may not know all the technical stuff, but we know how to do the photo ops.
Count of three.
Yeah, press down.
Still going?
Yeah. So good. The best part happens now. Okay, so now we'll begin our panel discussions. Again, we'll have two panels. The first is with domestic industry leaders and the second is with international industry leaders. Both panels will be moderated by NTIA leaders. I would like to introduce our first moderator, Ms. Amanda Toman, Director of the Public Wireless Supply Chain Innovation Fund. Amanda and your panelists, please join us.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone.
Good.
Coke and Pepsi, McDonald's, and what are we preferring? Which one are we preferring?
Well, thank you all for coming today. My name's Amanda Toman. I'm the director of the Innovation Fund, and I'm honored to be here with Yigal Albaz, who is the Senior Vice President and Network CTO at AT&T, and Adam Kopi, who is the Senior Vice President for Network Technology, Planning, Capital, and Maintenance Engineering at Verizon. It's really historic to see two competitors working together and collaborating. And I'm really excited to hear about how we got to this and how this collaboration has started and really about to get underway. So I have a list of questions. This first one I have aimed at both of you. So with this monumental collaboration and really the exciting work you're looking to do together, what inspired the ACCoRD application and proposal? Yigal?
Sure. So first of all, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Amanda, for awarding us the grant. It's exciting and it's really important for us. AT&T has long been a proponent of Open RAN. The Open RAN Alliance mission, which we are one of the founding members, is about transforming the wireless network from closed, proprietary, hardware-centric into open, disaggregated, and software and cloud-based. And I believe that this generous grant from the NTIA will help us to bring together the partnership of public and private, bringing together industry, academia, and government to promote the deployment of Open RAN in commercial network. I believe this whole process, as mentioned before, started with a survey. And I think you asked the industry, what are the holdback from introducing Open RAN in commercial network? And I think you got many answers, but by far the highest score was about the fact that we need more testing and integration environments. And I think that's what you've done. You follow up on this. And this is why we're here today, to celebrate the awarding of ACCoRD. And so it's pretty exciting.
And thank you again, Virginia Tech, for hosting. This is a fantastic venue for this topic. And as Yigal mentioned, there's so much work going on today on the development innovation on the radio access networks. And O-RAN is a step in the process of virtualizing networks, first in the core and then in the radio access network, and then moving to a more open, innovative environment. And the creation of the ACCoRD and the test beds that will follow is going to help structure a lot of work that's been going on in the industry for quite some time. We've focused on O-RAN from the very beginning and have deployed compatible equipment across the network already. So bringing structure to a testing process that proves interoperability in a high-performing, high-quality network is going to be a great value add from the ACCoRD.
Great. Thank you guys very much. So Yugal, this next question is for you. So with this collaboration that AT&T and Verizon are working on, you have a number of partners that you've included as part of the ACCoRD effort. How did you come to building out all of that support and bringing together the team that you put forward for the project?
Sure. So I think it starts with, I believe both of us understand our leading position in the wireless industry, and not just in the US, but actually globally. These are two companies that knows how to build large-scale networks, knows how to build labs to support networks, and know how to introduce new technologies, whether it's new generation, in our networks. And so we're partnering in creating specification in the Open RAN Alliance. We are partnering, creating standards in Addis. So it was obvious for us that we can do this in that regard. We also bring together our commercial relationship with the industry to bring a lot of the partners that was part of that tent to make this happen. And also our relationship with NTT Docomo and Reliance Jio, because global scale will be critical to the success of Open RAN. And so clearly it's not easy for us to create and bring 20 companies together, but I want to thank Rob Sony and Chris Boyer and Mr. Rice and others that diligently follow on the vision of coming together, because eventually we have the same challenges. It's much easier maybe to think that we can all do our own lab, but it didn't make any sense. It made sense for us to collaborate, create one lab for established and existing networks where we can test and share results, because the ecosystem is growing, but it's not big enough to just entertain two separate labs. So it just makes sense for us to come, bring everyone together to that great purpose.
I think that's great. And it's a huge statement, I think, to propel Open RAN, right? Having two big companies working together on this. Adam, I've got a two-part question for you next. So what do you see really as, what do you think the metrics of success will be for the test lab? 1 year down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road? And then partner with that, what do you see as some of the promising signs for the ultimate adoption, the commercial adoption of Open RAN?
Yeah, it's a complicated answer, but the two things I would look at for the success of the test process would be service parity with today's incredibly advanced wireless networks. So when you look at what operators are deploying, our goal is to have the best possible customer experience at all times. And any step forward has to improve upon that. And our testing will certainly focus on service parity and improvements that directly face the customer. The second piece is time to market. So by creating a test bed that allows for more rapid innovation from a broader community, we definitely see a path to more innovation, more services that benefit the customers, getting in front of them faster, advanced level of security for the network, and everything that comes along with a cloud-based distributed network like this. When you look a little bit further out and some of the draw and the attraction, that innovation is a huge part of it. And today we spend a lot of time working with our partners, innovating on the network to benefit the customer. This provides a much broader framework for that. And I think that's going to attract a lot of attention, especially among established partners and new partners that may emerge in the industry. So all of those things really was generating the excitement around the ACCoRD and O-RAN in general.
Great. Thank you very much. Yugal, from your perspective, how do you see the momentum that we've started today, and hopefully with the Innovation Fund, how do we continue to push that forward and really allow us at the Innovation Fund, but hopefully US telecom providers embrace Open RAN?
Sure. I think we were pretty consistent over the years to define what we think are the components to make Open RAN successful. One, we always said that we need mature open specifications. We also said that we need to bring the industry along, specifically the incumbent vendors. I think we've made good progress on those two aspects in terms of the progress that we've made. We also always say that we always need to follow the investment cycles. And typically operators make large investment, whether it's new generation or big advancement in wireless network during a generation, or if there's new spectrum. So I think we can use that as a foundation to continue this excellent collaboration between public and private to continue and promote a spectrum policy and pipeline in the US. The demand for connectivity and data consumption is growing year over year. And I think we have an opportunity here to create the policies to incentivize the investment, which O-RAN's going to be part of. So great opportunity for us to continue on this.
That's great. So did I hear that the refresh cycles will consider potentially integrating Open RAN? That one's not on the list. I apologize.
I would think absolutely. And we actually saw a case history really with vRAN. So deploying virtual radio access network needed a catalyst.
Yeah.
And for Verizon, C-band was that catalyst.
That's
So
great.
you have the spectrum investment, the deployment investment with the future state technology. That's definitely a recipe for success.
That's great. All right, my last question. This is for both of you. What additional opportunities do you see for other US carriers to partner and get into the development to embrace Open RAN as well?
There's a lot of history there already with the O-RAN Alliance, and we've been very active in that from the beginning, as we've mentioned before. So there's definite excitement within the operator community. We hope that this creates a catalyst. So as we talked about, when you look at the evolution of networks, you're looking for a catalyst to make your next investment cycle, and vetting this type of technology for a wide audience in a very controlled, structured manner is going to create that opportunity for other operators in our industry, both domestically and internationally.
And probably the other way is to look at this a little bit long term. Clearly, we're starting with Open RAN, specifically around the open frontal, but let's not forget, just the Open RAN Alliance has 10 working groups. None of them is maturing at the same time. So that will show up. Then we're partnering around the Next G Alliance and making sure that the US stays in leadership position when it comes to wireless technology. And I think the other part that we all can partner and bring along additional partners in the ecosystem is how do we advance AI and machine learning with wireless network. I tend to say lately that over the years, we're going to move from cloud native 5G to AI native Next G. And the idea is that AI and machine learning just become part and embedded into the wireless standards and into the wireless architecture. And the more open the network is, the easier it is for us to take advantage of AI and machine learning to create more efficient and beneficial networks to our customers.
That's great. Well, thank you both very much. Adam, Yigal, this is great. I'm very excited to see how this comes together and make a site visit and take a look at the test and evaluation facility. And I'm going to hand it over to Jaysha Ray, who is going to conduct an international panel.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. And hello, everyone. My name is Jaysha Ray, and today's event is particularly exciting for me as NTIA's head of international affairs, since as you've heard, the consortium involves a range of international companies. And as we heard on the last panel, global scale will be critical for the success of Open RAN. And so this is just so critical to our efforts. And I'm joined today by representatives from two of the foreign carriers that are actually founding members of the ACCoRD Consortium. So first we have Sadayuki Abeta, the head of Open RAN at NTT Docomo, who joins us all the way from Japan. And Bob Pippert, Vice President of New Technology and Development from Reliance Jio, who joins us all the way from Texas. But still, thank you for making the journey. So let's jump right in. So the first question is for both of you. What motivated NTT Docomo and Reliance Jio to join the ACCoRD proposal? We'll start with you, Abeta-san.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. Japan is at 14 hours from here, but I'm very happy to join this. So, to spread the open RAN in the world, the importantness is that how we created the ecosystem. So ecosystem should not be the American ecosystem, Japanese ecosystem, even that the Indian ecosystem. Ecosystem should be that the common single ecosystem in the world. Then we can use that ecosystem not only here in America, also Japan, also other country, Southeast Asia and Europe. So having a single ecosystem is very important. To working together with AT&T, Verizon, Jio, and also that many vendors in the world. Actually, I saw the many vendors name that is from the United States, Japan, and also India and Europe. So working with them, including incumbent vendor and the new open RAN vendor, creating that ecosystem very important. So we are very excited to work with them.
Great. Mr. Pippert, please.
And thank you and everyone here for inviting us as well. So from a Reliance Jio and India perspective, we have long been supportive of Open RAN. As many people have already talked about, it's important to have an open, disaggregated, interoperable RAN solutions so we can create a diverse and secure supply chain, right? And so we were one of the first early members of the ORAN Alliance right after it was founded. And with the goal of driving the standards and the specifications necessary to create that openness and interoperability. But what's really motivating us to join the ACCoRD consortium is beyond standards and specifications. We need a test evaluation framework that will really test these Open RAN elements and solutions against the real world requirements that operators have. We can't just take a piece of equipment and throw it in our networks. And so beyond the interfaces, there's a lot more evaluation that needs to be done. That's what ACCoRD has done. They're bringing together an international group of operators working with vendors and laboratories to help put this framework together for testing beyond just openness and interoperability, but really to drive towards an ecosystem of Open RAN solutions that are deployable in a network.
Great, thank you both. So Abeta-san, I'd like to ask you next, what are some of the insights that NTT Docomo will bring to this project?
Thank you. So we NTT Docomo deployed a multi-vendor interoperable network from 4G era. In the same geographical area, we have the different vendor according to, we selected vendor according to our deployment scenario. So interoperability itself is already supported in the commercial network. But at that time, we saw the specification defined by ourselves, not the open interface. It's a kind of the Docomo specific interface. But now with 5G, we defined open interface in our alliance. Of course, it's 3GPP. So our experience also can apply that this open interface. So working together with that other operators and vendors, we can share our experience to accelerate the interoperability test.
Wonderful, thank you. And Mr. Pippert, I would be curious to hear about how the Open RAN market and environment in India differs from that in the United States.
Good question. So there are a lot of similarities, I believe, between the India and the US and Japan. There are also lot of differences. I think from the similarities perspective, they've already spoken about the fact that I think all of the operators here are tier one operators in their markets, right? They have existing customer expectations. They have existing networks and systems. There's a lot that has to be, I hate to use the word careful, but there needs to be a structured way of bringing new equipment into the network. So that's a lot of commonality that we all have together. I think one of the differences from a geo perspective in India is we bring a scale that I think no other operator from a trusted nation can bring. We have hundreds of thousands of cell sites. We have more than 400 million subscribers. And when we talked about testing and improving Open RAN at scale, I think when it gets to the stage that it's ready, and we're all here to talk about testing and evaluation to get it to that stage, but I think India can bring that environment to prove it at scale.
Wonderful. And a similar question for you, Beta-san. What are some of the best practices from the Asian market or other foreign markets that we can carry over?
Yes. So many Southeast operators also interested in the Open RAN to introduce in commercial, but are still hesitant to introduce in commercial. One reason that they don't have enough capability to do that integration by themselves. But if we do that integration with interoperators here in US, and if they can use that one, there is more easy to introduce that Open RAN in commercial. So they are not giants like AT&T and Verizon. I think that AT&T, Verizon can do more things, but doing that together, I think we can reduce the cost and time, and then that is also useful for those countries.
Absolutely. So, Mr. Pipper, I'd be curious to hear how we can expand the testing access with other like-minded partners.
Yeah. So I think creating a true Open RAN ecosystem will take a global effort. It's such a huge paradigm shift that I don't think any one company or any one country really can achieve that. And so bringing together, and that's what the ACCoRD is doing here, is bringing together leading operators and even vendors from around the world, from the US and Japan and India, is a good start at creating that global effort for the ecosystem. And I think as we are, celebrating is the right word, we're announcing the funding here today is a huge first step towards progressing Open RAN. But I think if we want to expand it into other trusted nations, then having funding to help drive that testing and evaluation and maybe further steps into other trusted nations will be the next huge step that needs to be taken to really promote and drive Open RAN forward.
No, that's great. And relatedly, how can projects like the ACCoRD intersect with existing work at OTICs and other testing laboratories around the world? That's my last question for each of you. Beta-san, please.
Thank you. So OTIC, of course, that they do that similar interoperability test, but my understanding that the vendor bring that equipment, do that very fundamental test. This ACCoRD, we are working together with operators. So the test is more close to what we want to in commercial. So the test we request to the vendors or together, of course, to setting that test program together with the vendors and operators, that actually we need in commercial. So that is one of the big difference. And we also have the many vendors here in the ACCoRD, including especially incumbent vendors. That is also the big difference. So test not only focus on the idea, but not only focus on the front for test, but also include that extra interface supporting that, for example, inter GNOB handover between the different vendors, and also that interoperability core. So that kind of interoperability test we can do through this ACCoRD program.
Wonderful. I'll let you have the final word.
Okay, yeah. So as Beta-san was saying, the OTICs are there really to verify against interfaces, and they're a very important job. They're focused on providing certification and badging for the Open RAN elements and solutions, and to verify that they are compliant with ORAN specifications, which is a very important first step. But as I alluded to earlier, there's really more to having operator ready deployable solutions than just making sure they're interoperable. And there's requirements for reliability, for performance parity, for being able to interface with existing systems and manageability that are all very important. And that's what the ACCoRD, I think, is the next step in doing that, expanding the testing beyond just what the OTICs are doing, which is a first good step, but also taking it to evaluating solutions and from the requirements that our operators that we would bring. And that way we get more comfort and we get more maturity in the solutions to being ready to deploy in operator networks.
Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, and to your companies and the other international companies for participating in this incredibly important global effort. And so with that, please thank our panelists. And I'll turn it back to John, who will close us out.
Okay, thank you, everyone. This concludes today's announcement. I'd like to thank the Public Wireless Supply Chain Innovation Fund, NTIA, and the Department of Commerce for administering this awesome program. And of course, congratulations to our awardees. It's a great day for the wireless community. I would like to ask or invite everyone to step outside, stay here. We have plenty of refreshments, network, socialize, and take some photos. Thank you again, and have a great day.